to the other end of the spectrum with Dayton and with Jeffrey, both of you guys in the examples that you showed off for us, you kind of had the opportunity to really go more brand centric. There wasn't as much of a consideration for talent because it was a property that you guys sort of owned and controlled a little bit more. And Jeffrey, you were able to go as far as to create characters for the video game based on the brand, which is something that might be a little more than what, say, Matt could have done in his example, where he was working with Alka-Seltzer and he was working with the established brand of Rhett and Link as a talent brand. So can you talk a little bit just about how far you're really willing to go in those sorts of situations, and sort of where the creative integrity line is for you, and sort of the same question to Dayton. Maybe the both of you could kind of share on that.
So for us, the branded integration and the partnerships with the video games definitely needs to make sense. Gamers are a very vocal audience, and they definitely tell you what they think all the time. In terms of the creating these new Capri Sun bunnies, it was totally a good fit. And in fact, I've been working with Ogilvy New York for the last 6 years, and for the first 4 years, we actually couldn't find that fit. And if you're talking about talent and whatnot, I mean, our producers, we started off video games maybe 20 years ago as a sort of a small industry, paying people in pizza and beer, and now like you actually have really big talent and really big producers. And when we sat down to create this piece with Ogilvy, I mean, really, it was a roundtable with creative directors and top producers, and really to create the best content possible. So I think we've really grown up as an agency, and we're dealing with top creative minds, both in the agencies and on the client side. In terms of how far do we want to push the envelope, it's that's also setting the objectives with the brand. We have our CSI video game, for instance, and you can go as vanilla as you want with a certain product where it's just sort of set deck in the background, or you can go super spicy with having it really involved in a crime scene, exonerating a witness, leading to a subpoena. And that's actually something that we did with Visa, which is a pretty traditional brand. We work with their fraud protection unit to really embed Visa into one of our cases, and it actually won 5 advertising awards. So it all depends on where the agency and client are coming from. Do they just want to take a baby step and just sort of do something small with the video game publisher, or do they really want to take a giant leap of faith, like the woman from Ogilvy Toronto this morning was talking about, and do they want to do something with millions of impressions that involves a whole wheelhouse of TV, experiential marketing, web, video game, and sweepstakes and promotions.
To your point about finding that right partnership, so much of brand entertainment is about matchmaking, finding the right talent or the right property that matches with the brand. And obviously with the consumer brands, you can get a lot sexier and funnier and sort of out there. And one of the reasons I showed you what I did is that there's a lot of companies and nonprofit organizations and all kinds of different groups, government groups, and who, for them, it's not the right fit. And so you have to find different formats that do work for them. But really, in the end, it's about matching the talent and the story with the brand.
That's a good point about matching, and actually, Dayton, I'm going to switch up my question for you a little bit to kind of follow up on that idea. I mean, you went out and built this great mashup tool for Hockey Night in Canada. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the genesis when you're coming at it from that sort of technology side of, is it you think of the technology first and then you want to go to the brand, or do you think, how do you sort of strategize that out before you go in and talk to the partner?
Well, it came about from the availability of really, really great content. And if you take a look sort of historically at video mixing in general from an online perspective, there's a few companies that have done it. Adobe's done it. Yahoo's actually had purchased a company called JumpCut that did essentially the same thing, online video mixing. But what was sort of lacking in that customer experience or the user experience was the lack of content itself. And as a result, JumpCut, that was purchased by Yahoo, went under, and they're no more. What was really successful and different about what we did with CBC and Rogers was having access to tons of really, really great content, and then figuring out what we could actually do from an online perspective to create something that is branded, that is entertaining, that creates a unique customer experience and generates content in a different way from content that was sort of sitting around doing nothing, not really earning anything in terms of impressions, in terms of experience, and in terms of any kind of entertainment level or entertainment value. One of the most interesting things about the content is that while we're talking about talent, it's content that basically features some of the greatest talent that we get to see from the perspective of hockey players playing great hockey and doing some really great things, and being able to access content from way back when some of the people playing with it weren't even around.
So definitely, yeah, a good fit for the brand there. Jesse, I really want to talk to you about Megan Fox, because we're on the panel. I'm going to turn it into a relevant question though. When you have a big star name like that, how does this process work? Because I mean, there's people who obviously, pardon this sort of double entendre, but who would really want to jump on Megan as a brand, of course.
Easy, Andrew.
Please
Too
don't
far?
do that.
Too far? No. Keep going. All right.
All right, here I got the photos.
Okay. All right. Yeah, exactly. Nothing. But when you have a star power like that, how does this sort of negotiation that we're kind of talking about work? Like, are you able to just go and say, yeah, Megan Fox wants to do something for your brand to whatever brand, or is there sort of a matching that happens, or do you literally have brands coming and saying who's available in your talent roster to do something for our brand? How does that matchmaking process work?
It actually goes both ways. I talk to a lot of people in the video game world because, which is where I've been dealing with Megan a lot. Not a lot. That makes it sound like I'm hanging out with her all the time. I'm not.
You can make it sound like that. That's cool.
Other than that, no. So yes, there are a lot of inbound opportunities, but there's also, I was walking the show floor at E3, and I started to have a conversation with a publisher about one of their games and what their needs were, and I just kept saying, this is right for Megan Fox, this is right for Megan Fox. They're like, we can't afford her. I'm like, but this is right, and that was, I don't know, that was on Tuesday, maybe, or Wednesday. By Thursday, they were starting to go, well, maybe we could get a little bit more money, and now I've got an offer from them that is starting to get more in the ballpark, and, so there's this kind of balance that happens. A lot of it is like, yes, I will give a list of talent who meets your requirements and your budget, but then there are also opportunities that I go out and I solicit because I think, in Megan's case, she's a huge comic book fan and she's a huge video gamer. She just loves that stuff, and so I want to be able to support her and her interests and find the right opportunities for her as we grow her. And keeping in mind that we look at talent from a holistic perspective. This is one aspect of her, but this is also an aspect that speaks to a core fan base of hers.
So there was an instance where you kind of introduced that idea, and I wanted to go back to the Vancouver video, Sean. What was sort of the idea that? Where did you come up with the idea that, okay, we're going to go to the city of Vancouver and we're going to talk to them about digital branded entertainment? Why did you feel that that was a good fit, and how did an organization like that react?
Well, we're a convergent agency, so we're developing the advertising campaign, and the campaign was really sort of based on this idea of that people in Vancouver and people in British Columbia love to recommend their province, and the ad basically starts with a couple at the airport, and they're in the cab, and the cabbie says, oh, you got to go up to Grouse Mountain. They go up Grouse Mountain, and somebody there says, oh, you got to go across, the island. That's the island over there, and they're on their ferry, and somebody says, oh, you got to check out this winery. And they end up in Whistler and river rafting and doing a bunch of stuff. When they get back to the airport, there's a couple there with the map, and they give their recommend. And so it was a way to drive people from the advertising to all those different things that got touched on in a 60-second spot, and we extend it.